Good to have you all here. Hi, welcome. This is me. I'm a change agent consultant. I work in the Netherlands and I help organizations get better at doing lean, agile stuff, and help them implement it in a way that works best for them. And I work a lot with Kanban. I really like Kanban. So it got me thinking, and it inspired me to feedback some of the stuff I've seen in organizations and some of the problems I ran into myself in work, and just share them a little bit. So I think most of you will raise your hand here. Well, if it actually flips to the next slide. No, it doesn't. Ooh. This is what happens if you run PowerPoint on a Mac. You will get punished. Who here uses some form of agile method? Who doesn't? Is there anybody who doesn't? No? Good. Yeah, sure. Thank you. All right, so what do you use? Scrum, Kanban, Lean, something else? All of them? Okay, good. So I think you can apply this talk and the basic concepts I'll share with you guys on everything, but it fits very well on Kanban, so that's why I picked Kanban. So these are the basic Kanban principles, and I think most of you know them, and if you didn't know them before yesterday, then they've been shared by a whole bunch of speakers, so you should have seen them. You should have seen them before. The interesting thing is here that the first principle, start with what you do now, is a very simple one, and a lot of people use it and read it and then say, yep, that makes sense, let's start with what we do now. What I found is that at some point people forget that this is something you can do over and over and over and over and over again. So every time you make a change, you can start with what you do now and then move on from there. So today I'd like to share some of the things I've tried to make teams and make organizations aware that this is something you should repeat and you should do more often. But since I'm a consultant, I won't be around always. I really want teams to be independent and keep doing the stuff they're doing after I leave. So I try to figure out some ways to build it into the process, and I just want to share that with you. But first, different question. How did you pick your method?
From experience.
Yeah?
And applying it to my clients' needs.
Yeah, and so which one did you?
So I'm working for Monarch Airlines. There was a temptation to use Scrum, but it wasn't possible just because there wasn't the number of resources, and they just hired a team leader with no agile experience, so trying to do Scrum would have been nearly impossible.
Okay, good. So what did you do?
So I'm trying to use sort of Kanban evolutionary change approach, so getting those good ideas from this conference.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, anyone else? How did you pick your method? I assume most people here didn't just fall into an organization that was doing something.
Maybe my case is a bit strange because I was following David Anderson's work like since beginning of the 2000s, and his initial book, initially it was about UOC, and then when he switched to Kanban, actually it's been
Yeah. Yeah, so by following David and then applying what worked. Yeah, all right. So what I see is that a lot of teams. Yeah, sorry, you just walked up with the mic. What I see is that a lot of people and a lot of teams, when I get into an organization, I usually ask them. I say, so all right, so tell me, why am I here? What do you expect of me? What do you want to do? And they say, for all various reasons, they say, well, we'd like to do Kanban because we'd like to show people what we're doing, or Scrum doesn't work for us. Like, In your case, we like to see how we like to show how we're spending our time. We think we're doing a lot of the same, a lot of things at the same time. We want to reduce our multitasking. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons and approaches to why teams pick their method or the method they're using. And for each and every team, the end goal is very specific, and that makes that you can buy the book and you can install a method, but it probably won't work as well for them as it did for other teams. So to make sense of the world, well, the model that helped me make sense of the world was The Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. I don't know who read the book, who saw the TED video. Good. Watch the TED video first. It's only 20 minutes. It's shorter than the book. And what Sinek talks about is, he says all successful leaders, teams, and organizations act and think and communicate in the exact same way. And it's completely opposite from how the less successful ones are doing it. And he says and he uses Apple as an example, and that's why I don't particularly like the book, because it feels a bit like a huge Apple commercial to me. But I found the circle very useful. He says you have three circles. With one of them it says why, one of them says how, and the other one says what. And the what circle is about the product or the solution you're bringing to market, and you're bringing and making with your company. The how circle is about the process or the unique selling point. What does it mean for people to buy your product? What makes your product special? And then there's the why, and the why is by far the hardest. Is what is the reason you're doing this? Why does your company exist? Why do all of your products exist? And he says the successful organizations are very good at working from the inside out, and the lesser successful ones are usually working from the outside in. So they copy the phone, or they copy the design of the laptop, and then start justifying why they did it and how it fits to their company and to their specific market. And there are many ways that lead to success that follow if you reason from the inside out. If you start with the why and then start reasoning out. So if you start with the why, you can slice the circle and then put it as a sort of a megaphone. It basically says if you know why you're doing stuff, then the how and the what will form out of that, and the way you present yourself to the world in your what will be much bigger and possible in much more different kind of ways if you have a very clear view of why you're doing stuff. So there's many ways to skin a cat. So how would this work? So let's imagine a team of software developers, and here walks in the facilitator or a consultant wearing a tie and coming in and said, all right, why am I here? What am I doing here? What would you like to do? What would you like to accomplish? So what I did is it didn't exactly fit my needs, so I changed the circle a bit, and I said, all right, so let's make the why, let's call that the motivation. Why am I here? Why do you want me here? What do you want to achieve? Let's change the process into method or principle, and then the what into policies, and how do we apply those in our work, and what do we want to get from it? So then the team said, well, what we would like to do, what we really like to do is reduce the stress we have at the moment. We'd like to have a happy customer. They say it's awesome if your customer's happy. We don't know, but should be very cool. And we want to be very transparent towards our stakeholders, towards our management, towards the other teams, the people we work with. And we think we can do this by getting a grip on our ad hoc work, so get our production defects under control, make sure we can be more predictable, we'd like to really involve our customer in our process so they know what we're doing and they know how we're doing and how long it might take. And we'd like to make small changes. Kanban sounds nice. It feels like it'll fit our needs. So let's try Kanban. And the policies we'll install we'll put up a board so we can show to everybody what we're doing. We'll do stand-ups and retrospectives so we can change and adapt to whatever comes our way. And then every Tuesday in the third week of the month, we'll work at our client's office. And there we'll just be there and sit there and make sure they see us and we see them, just to connect with them a little bit, have them know who we are. And we'll stop doing all sorts of different stuff at the same time. Just do something and then finish it and then start a new one. This is very context specific for this team. It's something that happens to a lot of teams, and a lot of teams apply some of these principles, but usually most people don't apply them all. So this is one of the reasons I figured out that just installing somebody else's process or copying somebody else's process doesn't work, because they have a specific situation and they live in a specific context. They look at the world from a very specific view, and if you then borrow the stuff they try to do, you're acting like you're in their world and you are them, and it's probably not true. So you won't get the same results and same effects. And you'll see this, that with teams that have a pretty good view of why they want to do something, you'll see that in their board design and in their policy, stuff like that. This team, they said, well, let's have an intake column there, where everything we do has to be sent to the client or brought to the client. We ask them, is this actually what you want from us? Are we clear on what you're getting, or do we need to change it before we start? And then we'll add some extra swim lanes, because we think that we should reserve some resources for risk management and dealing with ad hoc work. And so then they say, well, there's a whole bunch of other things we should do. We could start managing. We should measure happiness. Just ask our customer, how happy are you? Are you happy with the work we're doing? And what 3 suggestions do you have for us to make the work better and have us do a better job at delivering what you would like to have? And you will adapt your metrics towards that and maybe change locations, work from different places, work in a different way, collaborate in a different way. There's a lot of different things that you will change in the process, and specifically this team changed in the process. So question for you: if you work in a team and work in a transition and maybe work with a method, did you go outside in or did you go inside out? So did you start with a why, or did you justify the why from the outside in because the other people were doing it? Just think about it. So let's fast forward half a year, and this is basically why I thought it would be good to have a talk about this. Now we forward half a year. We'll take the basic Kanban principles, and what I found and what I discovered is that these principles change into these principles. We remember how it used to be, where we started, and we're pretty sure we don't want to go back to it. But that's about it. So we keep evolving and we keep changing, but we keep measuring it to our start, so our first beginning, instead of measuring it against the last change we made and the goals we'd like to achieve in the end. So this is where I come in and say, like, well, it feels like there's stuff in your system, like policies and weird things that I don't get it. I don't get why it's there. I don't get why you have it, just because it doesn't make any sense. And This is just a basic observation. The bigger the organization gets, and the more complex the communication within that organization gets, the bigger the chances that people don't know why they actually started working with a certain method or methodology. So people will work with Kanban because the other people are using boards and the pink stickies are so pretty. Exaggeration, but it happens. Team says, all right, we're doing fine, it works, we're still improving, it's still going very well. And then I asked them, okay, all right, so why are you using Kanban? And they say, well, we're using Kanban because we wanted to get a grip on our ad hoc work and we wanted to involve our customer. Well, the whole thing we put on the first page, but why is that? The thing is that instead of answering the question with their why, they're now answering it with their how. So they're limiting the amount of options they have for improvement and working outwards into the world. An example I use, most teams that start with a board, because I'd like to show you some examples now. Most teams that start with a board, they start with a board like this. It's messy, it's the hipster Kanban, to-do, doing, done, crooked lines, ugly written post-its. And this was with a team I worked with. We used to have this board. The thing is that usually teams move forward to a board that's a little bit more stable, and then somebody found a long enough ruler somewhere, or the time and the patience to use the small one and put all the lines straight. This is where you end up. The thing is that with all the stuff we did in adding risk categories and stuff like that, that was our first board. So we actually moved backwards in time, from a very neat board towards a very messy, ugly board. So what happened? This board wasn't that smart when I did it, because I just wiped out the entire board because we needed something else. It didn't work for us anymore. Wouldn't recommend you that because you'll lose all your historical data. What happened is that at the time we needed to change the board, the old board, we were using the old board because it looked neat and it looked nice and it looked good and we didn't want to mess it up. The problem was that we had two projects that were running late. They turned out to be massively more work than we initially anticipated. And we had a bunch of different kind of items that we were working on. And they were all hidden in this very neat and straight-lined board. We couldn't find it. So at some point I said, well, that's it. We're just changing the board. So I wiped out the board at some point. Put up the one project, Project A, and then put up the other project, Project B, and then all the rest of the work, and then we just rearranged all the post-its to fit the board better. Jim talked about this. I really like the word mindfulness he used for it. I never realized it, but that's actually the word I've been looking for a while. It's much more thinking about what you actually need to use to reach your goals. And for us, it was to just mess up the board, create an ugly one that nobody liked, but was very clear in what we wanted to have. And then there's some things that I tried to do to make this mindful. Let's use the mindfulness word. Part of the process and part of the continuous cycle of improvement, so that everything that we do and everything that we did was questioned at some point in time. So one of the things we did was we used a board that was just a basic improvement board. People would put up stuff, and if they said, I have a good idea, I have a suggestion for improvement, put it up, different board next to the regular board. And we discussed that after the stand-up, so we did a 15-minute stand-up, and then we'd move over to the problem board. And then we said, all right, so which of these should we do? Which should we fix? Do we have time to do it? Which ones do we think is rubbish? One of the ways. Worked pretty good. except it takes longer. And with teams where the stand-up can take more than 15 minutes, this one will take much more than 15 minutes. So you'll lose a lot of time over it, but it works and it keeps you conscious. Another one is just to visualize the why. So the initial problem we had, and if you did a Kanban workshop, you probably did this before, is describing the sources of dissatisfaction. That's usually the reason why you start picking your policies and picking the practices you'll use. Write them down and put them somewhere visible, where you can see them, and make sure that you have them every time that you pass the board. People know why you're doing certain stuff, and people get reminded. And at some point, somebody will walk in and he says, "Those don't match. It doesn't work. Change it." Then there's another one, and Jay offered a variation to this one. It's to time limit your policies. And it basically means that if we have a retrospective, then we put up a policy and say, well, let's try this for 2 weeks, or let's try this for a month, and then we'll just stop doing it and see how it works. Jabe's variation was that he said, what was it, Jabe? It was stop doing rules for 2 weeks. So it basically works backwards on the whole thing, and it's a good point. It gives you the chance to get feedback on rules that you already established at some point. And what we usually do in the retrospective, what I tried doing and what seems to work okay, is put up a couple columns and say, well, we have some stuff we want to keep, there's some stuff we want to change, there's some stuff that we just need to stop, doesn't make any sense anymore, get it out of the system. And then there's the stuff that we actually don't even know why it was in there in the first place. Some examples: stand up at 9 a.m. It's a good time, it works for everybody, most of the people are awake, nobody's late, so let's keep it there. Then we want to change our standard class of work items. We want to change from pink stickies to yellow stickies, because you cannot buy pink stickies, and they're the most expensive stickies you can buy, and standard items are the most items we have through our system, so it's a basic economical choice. Let's change this policy. We want to stop doing the 3-question Scrum stand-up. What did you do yesterday? What will you do today? And where would you rather be? Just because it doesn't work for us, there's a whole bunch of variations on the 3 thing, but it didn't work for the team. We didn't like it. We should change the questions or figure out some other form of stand-up. This doesn't work for us. Let's stop it. And we had a policy in our system where we said there's always 2 people allocated to work on production bugs that we don't even know why we still have it. Doesn't make any sense anymore. At the time it made sense. Right now it doesn't. Let's just throw it out. This way of doing a retrospective actually works very well if you're doing the time-limited policies as well, because you write your policies on Post-its, and it makes it easier to move them around this board. I think I'm almost out of time. Must be like 1 minute or something. All right, so the other one is, well, for a consultant, this sheet should be in there. It just makes sense of getting somebody in from the outside. Can be somebody from the organization you work, just somebody that looks at your situation from a different perspective and then starts questioning what you're doing and why you do it, and just basically ask a lot of questions. This one, somebody mentioned it in Poland. They said, well, you can have a retrospective where all the policies are rated, and it's basically what I developed the other one from, the keep, stop, change, and how to get rid of. And have people explain how this policy is working for them. And if nobody can explain why a policy is working for them, or only one person can explain it, then it might be a good chance to have a discussion about the policy in the first place. So to sum up, it's all contextual. It all works different for other people. I just wanted to share some of my experiences, one of which is that the stuff you're doing right now probably won't work anymore in the same way in a couple of months. Just be aware of this, use feedback loops to learn about this, another Kanban principle, and just question everything. It's fun. People will hate you for it at some point if you do it annoyingly enough, but it's good. It keeps people on their toes, and it helps you improve your process. All right, so now I'm supposed to be quiet for 10 seconds. Sorry, 10 minutes maybe. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have time for questions. Are there any questions? Thank you, guys.